On tonight's program, I go over PvP feedback from the community. Because there's very few of them in the game, there's not a lot of variety, and we'd love to be able to have that flexibility to build PvP maps. The tone of your review. Yes, it's important.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, so even as a reviewer, I kind of have to check myself and say, okay, let's just step out of this. I mean, what is he trying to achieve, and what advice can I offer him to help him try to achieve that?
And what makes a mission worthy of 5 stars?
5 stars is this kind of nice mix of all of them.
Join us on the Foundry Roundtable. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Foundry Roundtable. I'm Drogan1701, and yes, I was going to rage about how the Hobbit Extended Edition missed its iTunes release date Tuesday, but, they got it up within about 24 hours, so whatever. I got it, gonna watch it after the show. Obviously, our favorite game companies probably know this, but, if you're gonna set a release date, you ought to hit it, or don't set one in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes, but when will it be in the Foundry?
Well, I'll tell you what, with me are 3 guys who probably couldn't care less. Markhawkman, Hippiejohn, and Greendragoon.
I care. I'm looking forward to the Hobbit.
I'm flabbergasted. We're not having to respond to some strange...
No, I didn't make up ridiculous things about you tonight.
Exactly.
For yourself, I
gotta change it up a little bit.
I have been waiting very much for the Hobbit Extended Edition to release.
So you're getting the physical version, though.
Yes. I like my copy. I haven't bought into digital videos yet.
Well, we start tonight with the news, and there's just a few little news items to report. Obviously, the latest episode of Purity. This is Purity 4 of Vision by Castmodean is up for folks to play. Next week will be Realm Time 82's mission, and then the finale by yours truly. Other little news items, we got some patch notes today, nothing strictly Foundry related, but all the cruiser commands are going live. These are little, they're sort of, I liken them to the Paladin auras from World of Warcraft, where it sort of gives you a passive boost and everybody else in your party a passive boost. And there's different ones and different ones depending on what you're flying.
So I think that is Foundry related, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
This is a change that's occurring to all cruisers in the game here, and if you have cruiser mobs in your Foundry mission, they may begin using these new powers.
I asked about that in the patch notes thread. And this does not, NPC cruisers will not be using these. I should say, Bradflake said there's no plans for NPC cruisers to use these at this time.
Gotcha. That's good news, actually.
So I mean, next, tomorrow, they may announce that, yes, NPC cruisers are using these, but for the moment, what we've been told is no.
I think that's really good news,
but
actually.
That is information that,
players.
Information that Foundry authors need to know is that, they won't have to worry about these in combat balance. If indeed they're going to worry about it.
I was.
So
I had been thinking about that for, since they talked about those commands going to all cruisers. I was like,
Nope, for the moment it will just be player cruisers. The other thing I wanted to briefly talk about before we get into anything else is I wanted just to put this out there to the community of Foundry players. If you're browsing through the Foundry menu and you run across a mission that says test version on it, please don't play it unless the author has asked you to. I mean, there's nothing strictly wrong about it, but, it's just sort of bad Foundry etiquette, because it's a test version, it's not ready for prime time, unless the author has asked you to come in and, please test my mission so that I can figure out where the bugs are, and you can tell me things like, give me feedback, that sort of thing.
Better don't leave a review.
Yes,
I was going to say, at the very least,
don't star it, don't leave a review.
I'm actually very secretive with my test missions. I mean, they're only up long enough for me to grab them, and then after that I'll pull them and then share them with anyone I need.
Yeah. I generally do that, but forgot a few things that when I was doing a test publish over the weekend, and somebody played it, and it's like, okay, But still, just general advice for people out there. If it says test version on it, avoid it unless the author has asked you to.
I suppose you could duplicate it and then wipe it.
You could, but I don't know. I don't always trust the duplicate process. I
never trust the duplicate process.
So let's move on to what we've been working on. Greendragoon.
So, this last week I've actually been off the grid dealing with some personal things. And so not only have I not been in the Foundry, I really haven't been online on anything. But things are starting to settle back down, so I'm kind of trying to push towards back to my normal routine. That said, before I took my unexpected break, I did get some stuff done in part 2. This would have been 2 weekends ago. And I had been working heavily on map 8, and I guess you could say I have been like waist deep in puzzle making.
Huh.
And I know I've talked about it in the past about the com badge idea I've been working on, where you basically have this persistent map dialogue that basically doesn't close down. So no matter what you do, it always minimizes to an OS button, and that basically represents your persistent use your com badge, and then you use it to coordinate with a couple of other groups that are working on the map off screen. And so you get them to like do stuff, and that allows you to progress. And so part of the problem is one of the things you're doing is feeding these codes in order to unlock doors so that you can get through. And so there's this massive section of the dialogue tree, which is just all of these possible combinations, all mashed in together. And since normally what you do when you do a combination puzzle is you have a correct line and then a incorrect line. And if any choice that's not correct pushes them into the incorrect line. In my case, this gets way more complicated because not only do I have my incorrect line, but I've also got I think 7 or 8 correct lines that are all mashed into this elaborate tree, and it's just the fun of trying to keep track of all of those. I am secretly hoping I don't run into the dialogue limit. I'm pretty sure choices that don't have their own dialogue boxes don't count against the limit. I think it's just dialogue boxes themselves. But yes, it's become a very big monstrosity, so adding in a new line is an increasingly complicated task. Because every line has to have each digit, and then each digit has to have choices for all the possible combinations that all link back to whether the winning or losing line. So yeah, it's very complicated, and that's just one of the characters. I've got a couple of other ones that thankfully won't be as complicated that I've got to build in too. So I've been working on that. The good news is that this is map 8 of 11, and map 8 is by far the largest one. If I was to equate it, I would say it's closest to the Persephone map in part 1, except that it's all custom and whatnot. But it's that big where you do a lot of stuff on a single map. But after this, maps 9 through 11 are actually very small in comparison. Map 9 is a battle off, it's on a map that's already built. Map 10 is one of the few space maps, and then map 11 is the other space map. And both, not a whole lot happens. It's mostly battles. It's kind of the climactic end to the episode. So once I can get through map 8, it's actually kind of like a home stretch through maps 9, 10, and 11. And once I get through that basically means that while the dialogue isn't polished yet, the mission is in a completed enough state that where someone else could go through and play the mission, which I'm hoping means that I can start pulling in a select few people to start testing and get a little bit of early feedback.
Right on.
Excellent. Pretty good place to be at.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the little more it's kind of a drudge through map 8, but it's like I know that every little bit I get closer to finishing map 8 is like the home stretch where I can see the end.
So light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. And anyone who's followed me for a while now knows that this has been a very long project.
So yeah, because Let's see, when did you finish part 2?
It's been over a year.
Yeah.
Or part 1 is over a year since I launched.
I was going to say, because you haven't published a mission since we started this show.
Yeah. It's not for lack of working
although
on it.
actually, neither have I.
But that's
I was thinking about
it.
I was thinking about it this way, yeah. That is about to change for me, because I'm about to publish essentially 2 missions within the next couple of weeks.
You and I are very similar, except that instead of putting your energies into multiple projects, I've just been dumping it all into one.
And I've been dumping a lot of energy into things that distract me from the Foundry.
There's always that.
There's always that. All right, Hippiejohn, what have you been working on?
Well, I've been unable to keep my mind focused on one thing, but all that means is that I have 2 projects that I jump back and forth between, and in my mind I'm trying to see it as there are comic book writers out there who write 3 and 4 comic books a month. They're just keeping different storylines in mind and working on them at different times. So that's what I've been doing, is working on 2 different ones. The first one is the Mayhem cartoon episode 3. It's by far going to be the longest of the Mayhem episodes to date. Without doubt, actually. In my mind, it will be the longest of the 3 that, I will have made. And it should be a little bit different than people have come to expect, but it should still be cartoony. Right now, with that, I'm working on putting a whole lot of Borg in a whole lot of little sleepy Borg alcoves. The other project I'm working on is the one that you inspired, Dragoon, is the Targ handler in the first city being a minor NPC that people don't use, that has grown into an idea that really, it's going to take me some time to do, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's going to be my attempt at proving I do more than just silly cartoons or lighthearted comedy missions by doing kind of a more classic war story. We keep, we're told by the game that the Federation and the Starfleet rather, and the Klingon Empire, Klingon Defense Force are at war. That war is not a pretty wonderful thing, and one type of movie that I've always liked is old war movies. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna watch a bunch of old war movies and try to tell a war story from the point of view of the Klingon Empire as a KDF captain. So those are the 2 things I'm working on at the moment.
I've always been partial to A Bridge Too Far.
I like that one
as far as
too.
war movies go. That's something I've kind of wanted to do a little bit as well, is tell sort of a war movie when I had it incorporated into one of my far off projects. So hopefully I'll get to that one day. I had a thought for that mission for you, Hippie, is you ought to find somebody to make a mission that tells the Federation side of that, of whatever particular battle you're going to be in.
Ooh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, writers out there, get in touch with me on my Twitter or on my private message me on the forums, or figure out how to get in touch with me. It's not that hard. It's the internet age.
All right, Mark, what have you been working on?
Other than tinkering with making a PvP map, which, as we all know, you can't actually use for PvP, not a whole lot.
Let's say that you toured the guys through your PvP map example after the last show. I don't know, what do you guys think?
It definitely has the right ingredients. What I saw of it, it's got the ingredients for good PvP, ground combat happening. The only thing I would change about it is I would want to see it decorated more if it were actually able to be a PvP map, you know what I mean? But as it is, it shows some of the real good potential for what you can do with multiple levels and things like that. I thought it was a really good job.
Excellent. Well, we plan to talk about PvP a little bit more later. So, we will pick that up later on. What I've been working on is I got my Purity episode to the testing phase, which means it's essentially done. I'm just getting feedback from all my playtesters. And, while that's going on, I decided to real quick pick up a mission that I had started for one of the previous challenges and abandoned, because I thought, how fun would it be to put together sort of a horror-themed mission and put it out on Halloween. So I've got, less than 2 weeks to get this done. I've got a lot of the script written. I know where the maps need to be. So, and I'm not going to say too much about it at this point other than zombies. And maybe even breen zombies. Well, I say zombies, but it's actually more like Reavers from Firefly. That's how they're going to be. They're going to be, living people that have just been driven completely to like homicidal rage. It's going to touchstone one of the Star Trek movies. It's going to involve the breen. So I think it should be fun. It's going to be a very quick build for me if I'm going to have it out by the 31st, which of course is next Thursday, not this coming Thursday from our perspective, but next Thursday. Obviously that's going to compete a little bit with Cryptic's new featured episode, but that's okay. I don't care. Other than that, I've just been sort of kicking back because obviously the really, really hard work for my Purity episode is alright, mission reviews. Greendragoon, why don't you start us off?
So, after my week-long hiatus, I had to do a little catch-up work to do. So, like the last time I was on, 2 weeks ago, I have 2 Purity episodes to kind of go through. So I guess I will start off with Purity, episode 3. This would have been the one by CaptPFDennis, and this was Of Honor, I believe. So
I believe you are correct.
Yes. So basically, this one kind of picks sort of in a way it picks off where part 2 ended, but it also kind of picks up where part 1 ended. In that you find yourself stranded on the moon that you were crashing towards in the end of part 1, which is kind of where you expected to find yourself at the beginning of part 2. And you're basically there forced to survive. Once you kind of get through the initial survival stages, you soon find that you're not alone on the planet and are captured by enemy forces, and you get to meet some of the learn some more about the kind of what's been going on recently between the 2 races of this world. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I think I've given every one of them 5 stars so far. I will say, it definitely makes a lot more progress in the overarching story than the second part did. By the same token, I didn't really notice it until I went to play part 3, but it does kind of feel like part 2 didn't make any progress to the arching story. It was all kind of its own independent story that was almost kind of outside of what was happening with the rest of the arc. Because literally, you do kind of pick up immediately where part 1 picked up. And thankfully, as I was kind of voiced my concerns about this before, they do explain what happened to you in part 2, and so you're given a reasonable explanation. In a way, part 3 is also kind of expanding upon that. This is kind of your chance to kind of interact with the people versus kind of playing a role like you were in part 2. Build-wise, maps excellent as ever. I don't think this series has any bad map editors. I could go on and about how great the maps are. And of course, CaptPFDennis is a veteran author, and so has definitely had his fair share of complex builds. I liked the progression really well in this one. It was definitely kind of nice to kind of have things moving forward again. Gameplay wise, gameplay was good. It was all ground, but given the plot of the story, it was pretty understandable. I would say I didn't find anything too difficult to follow. I will say that there was a number of instances where the author kind of had to request you to kind of play along. So, for instance, you're captured and you're supposedly deprived of your weapons, which of course you're not deprived of your weapons. I mean, that's a Foundry limitation. But then at some point he has you fighting hand to hand, so he has to ask you, hey, can you disarm yourself and go have your boss stand off so they don't interfere? And I'm kind of hit and miss. I mean, on the one hand, it's actually it's really kind of a lot of fun to do the fight barehanded. So, but at the same token, I'm always kind of hesitant when you have to ask the player to kind of step out of character and deal with something like that. So I'm of two minds on that.
I ran into that same thing when I was building my mission Raktajino in a Jar, which eventually became a Spotlight. Because I had you in a prison camp, and obviously I can't, as Foundry authors, we can't take away your weapons or anything like that, or prevent you from using them. So, I mean, my approach is to have, nothing that required you to use your weapon until you, in the story, broke in and stole some.
Yeah, and that's generally how I do it as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of small things like that is like just slight, well, we've kind of got to get you to kind of play along. I mean, and I thought about tweeting CaptPFDennis while I was playing is like, yes, I played along, I took off my weapon. I gotta say, one thing I did notice is that during that fist fight, I don't think the guy ever hit me back, and I'm not entirely sure if that was just because I kept knocking him down, or because if there was like a Foundry bug at work there.
Did you take damage?
I don't remember him ever hitting me.
Because I know sometimes, if it's like a reskin or something, sometimes the animations won't play.
That's true, and I don't know what
because to get a mob that will only do melee, you have to reskin one of the animals, and sometimes they just headbutt you.
Okay, I don't remember him headbutting me, but you're right. It may have been a case where he reskinned it as something in the animations didn't line up, so he kind of just looked like he was standing there.
Possibly.
Because yeah, he definitely wasn't using a weapon. So I don't know, that might have just been the case. Cryptic, we could really use a
melee only humanoid mob.
Yeah. I know they have some encryptic missions. So anyway, I really liked the escape. He has this one scene where they basically blow a giant hole in the side of this compound, and definitely some great special effects there. Yeah, I really love that. I like the bombardment at the end of the mission. You're supposedly getting shot at from space. Obviously, he can't really have like any of the phasers coming down, like orbital strike or something like that. But I mean, still, he's got you surrounded enough in the explosions that as they're going off that you definitely kind of lose yourself in the moment a bit. Overall, good progression. I enjoyed the mission. I mean, if I was to give any suggestions, this is totally in hindsight. I could almost see parts 2 and 3 kind of merged a little. I don't know, I think you'd have to cut out a few bits just to keep the length down, but it's one of those things where it would have been nice if part 2 had some progression to the arc overall, just because it did kind of make it feel like it was this outside element. I could have seen something really cool where you don't get the dream, or you get captured first, and then you meet the person who can basically give you this vision, and then that kind of acts as basically a journey of, or a development, in that they don't trust you at first, and until you kind of go through this process, that's part of your earning their trust. But like I said, they're all featured now, so I kind of give these in hindsight, knowing that there's not really much the authors can do about it.
No, not really.
No, not really. But hey, for next time. Let's see. I guess from there I can move on to part 4. I actually did play these back to back. Part 4, I think, definitely takes a very different turn. It picks up where it's the first step where you start to feel like you're gaining traction after all the bad stuff that happened to you in part 1. So you're finally back in your ship, and so you never notice how much you missed that thing until you've been without it for so long. But you're back in your ship. You're kind of taking control of the situation again to a point. And part 4 is much more investigating kind of how deep this goes. So it actually takes you away from the planet where you have been for the last 3 episodes, and actually going and exploring like other leads, like on other parts of the galaxy. Let's see, I believe this one was Castmodeans, part 4, and I am spacing on the title.
Purity of Vision.
Purity of Vision. So, I mean, that makes sense in that it's definitely kind of exploring, not just, so up till now, the story has kind of been the culture that this planet has, and it's the impacts of first contact. This one kind of starts to dig into the Admiral herself and what might have been her motivations or her side of the story. And I will admit that in part 4 you only get bits and pieces. You kind of see some of the strings, but you don't see enough of the ending to kind of get a feeling where it's going. But it's definitely pretty clear that the Admiral was not working alone. And at this point, I'm a little confused as to how some of the plot threads fit together. But it's one of those cases where I imagine that'll be explained later. I mean, we still have 2 more episodes to go through.
I should say, I hope we explain it well.
Yeah.
I'm sure certainly that is our objective. Whether we do it well or not, I don't know.
Hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once again, great maps. I mean, I kind of feel like a broken record saying, yeah, great maps, great maps, great maps. But yeah, I mean, Castmodean does a great job. He's got he's got a couple ground maps. He's got a ship interior, and he's got a colony. I definitely like the colony. I mean, it definitely felt like something you could kind of explore. I mean, it was big enough that it didn't feel like just like one of those little villages that you sometimes get in cryptic maps, where it's just a few buildings and that's it. I mean, there's like areas of the city. I mean, there's an upper area and there's a lower area, which is very cool. The ship interior was kind of an interesting one. It was basically, I mean, I had to look at the map to kind of get this, but it was basically a redress of another interior, not a starship one, but I think it would have been one of the generic ones, but it's definitely nice and detailed. It was kind of weird because he has 2 decks of the ship that you go to, and instead of like loading up a second map to do the different deck, he basically has the same deck again, except he changes things around a bit. So it's kind of got the same layout, except he changes who's on it and whatnot to kind of imply that it's a different deck. Pardon me a sec. Apologies, I had to cough there. Okay. Yeah, and it's one of those cases where it took me a sec to kind of realize what he was doing, because there's no transition. When you get into the turbolift, it just kind of stops glowing, and you're like, what just happened? And then I kind of realized, he expects me this to be a different deck. So, I mean, yeah, that was kind of thing. Definitely very detailed.
I've got a trick I like to do for that, where I despawn the turbolift in front of you and spawn one behind you, and have, I don't know, something pop up and say, welcome to deck 6, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think he could do that in that case because he was working within an existing interior. So he kind of had to follow the same layout.
That can be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a little bit of trade-offs.
You might possibly be able to pull that off with a few of the larger interiors, but even then it'd be tricky.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how much time he was working with. It might have been a case where he kind of just had to work with the same interior twice just to save time. One cool thing I want to note is I finally saw someone who thought of using those carpet panels that we have as floors for hallways, which is awesome. It's one of those things I've toyed with and actually went as far as laying down, figuring out how they fit together. in order to form a more cohesive shape, but I really hadn't had any chance to test it or do anything with it. But it's still kind of really cool to see another author playing around with that.
I think they're named something platform, isn't that right?
I think so. I mean, it's been a little while since I've looked at them, but yeah, they're basically those like half a section carpet panels.
Yeah, they're very strangely shaped.
Yeah. I think I got them so that they almost formed an octagon, and if you were to put walls on the side, you could have worked it into. But yeah, I mean, since some sides are not, or don't have any end to them, or don't have a border, you can kind of overlay them into certain shapes. It's just a really pain to try and get the positioning just right. Gameplay wise, I found it, combat was decent, nothing too challenging. He does have a puzzle, and this is the first puzzle I have seen in the Purity series. So kudos for that. I did in fact solve the puzzle. I managed to get the. I mean, he didn't make it too hard, but definitely challenging enough that you kind of had to read what was going on and pay attention. But nothing annoying like obscure trivia or like high-end math problems.
Well, that's because Bazeg wasn't making it.
Yes, or Zorbane. I know Zorbane has used some complicated math problems before. Overall, I mean, I don't want to say too much at this point because, again, like back when I was doing part 2, I haven't seen how it plays out yet, and so I can't really pull any judgment until I see how it goes. But I mean, it's definitely been an enjoyable series, and I think, I mean, overall, this has definitely been a fascinating project to watch because it kind of, it's in a way, it's a kind of a new experience for the Foundry. Because I mean, I don't think Foundry authors have tried to collaborate on this scale, which is funny because I noticed something kind of interesting. Well, I was playing through PFDennis's mission, and I noticed that he was using kind of his he has his own little unique style about how he formats dialogue. I mean, especially he likes to work in Captain dialogue, so he's got his own kind of style for doing that. But it got me to thinking about the fact is that is it important to try and standardize dialogue formatting across a series like this with multiple authors?
Oh, that's sort of a toss-up. I mean, we could have done it, and I'm sure it would have been fine, but I think I'm not sure if people pay that much attention.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I think they do.
In the mission, you're in it.
I mean, it definitely was not
necessarily
that I
thinking about consistency with the other parts.
But yeah, I mean,
so I think that they do, though. I think that they do pay attention to that. But I think that it's a choice. It's a conscious choice whether you choose one writer for all of the dialogue that gets input into the missions, or whether you're going for what I think Purity is going for, which is not just a highlight of the story, but also, here are 6 different ways of telling stories using the Foundry. 6 different authors' approaches. I kind of like that, as well, but there is something to be said for, a consistency in dialogue and tone and whatever. And I think, in that case, if you're looking for that, you're looking for one person to be doing, that dialogue writing and such. So,
or and these are things we didn't do, but you could have somebody who's sort of a designated script supervisor that, you turn in you go and write your script, and then you sort of turn it into one person who makes sure it all looks pretty well consistent.
Well, I don't know that it necessarily has to be so far as to have every script approved or have one person write all the dialogue. I think I work in like a certain amount of content development, and what we do is there's often a style guide that we have that basically specifies here are all these conditions and here is how you format it properly for each condition. So,
working in journalism, we have our own style manual that nobody else uses.
So, I mean, obviously I don't...
Yeah, but honestly though, I think that's useful up to a certain point, but as long as it's approximately the same, I don't think it would be much of an issue.
Yeah, but I mean, you could come up with, this is how we handle Captain's dialogue, and this is how we handle, non-dialogue choices, and this is how we, agree to format titles. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things I always kind of wanted to create, like a style guide. I mean, one of my 1,000,001 things I've thought about doing is kind of sitting down with Cryptic's missions and really taking a hard look at how they format like titles and how they use out of character text, how they use mission info text, how do they handle captain's dialogue, how do they or what techniques do they use for formatting bridge officer dialogue? Because I mean, in the case of an author working on his own, it's really author's choice. I mean, it's his mission. He can take it in whatever creative direction he wants. But when you have these multiple people working or trying to do it, then you kind of adds a whole new dynamic to it because your work is no longer alone. You suddenly are kind of...
We have talked about on this show being internally consistent.
Yeah.
And being consistent with yourself. And when you have a series like this, yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Probably would have been better had we made sure to standardize, this is how you do captain's dialogue, this is how you do bridge officer dialogue, that sort of thing.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it didn't even occur to me that this might be an issue with multi-person arcs like this. Until, I kind of started to notice some of the differences in writing between the various authors. And so, it's like one of those things. It's kind of why this is such a fascinating project, is because it's raising all of these new aspects that previously we've never even really thought about because that's a non-issue.
And I think that's definitely a good thing, especially because, one of our goals is to sort of encourage more of these collaborative projects.
Yeah.
Maybe not, not taking the same form that ours does, with or without support from Brand Flakes. But we'd love to see more, especially ones like, especially like a Klingon series.
Yeah.
We'd love to see somebody do
Klingon
that.
series, Romulan series.
And we hope that they learn lessons from what we do.
Yeah, it's definitely all a learning process, and that's really what's fascinating about the whole thing is just because it is so new, it would almost be fun for you guys, after you finished doing all of this, to write up a guide or something, maybe even have it like a guest blog, basically kind of outlining what have you learned after having done this. Where did you guys think, okay, this works, this, don't do this, whatever you do, don't do this. Just all of those kind of things.
Well, that's one thing is, in a couple of weeks when we've got all the missions out, I'm planning to have our project manager, Rogue Enterprise, on the show to talk about exactly that. But I think you have a good idea about a guest blog or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, it's one more way to promote the Foundry.
Absolutely. Are you finished with your reviews?
I think so.
Okay. All right, Hippie, you got some reviews for us.
Yeah, I've been playing, as I said last week that I would be doing, that I've been playing all of the challenge entries. I haven't gotten to all of them yet, but I'm playing them, through, and said that I would be giving what essentially is just kind of impression reviews, because one, I'm in the challenge. I don't want to do big critical reviews of other people's work. I just want to give, quick impressions. So I've got 3 that I've played that I have quick impressions of. The first one is, what was it called? The Best of All Worlds by @Maquis. The impressions that I want to give here are that the mission drops me right into the middle of the action. And I often really like that. But this middle of the action calls for a real big suspension of disbelief from the very beginning of the mission. Supposedly my ship is horribly damaged, and these Cardassian true way raiders are destroying me, and I'm in a top of the line Odyssey class starship that when I start the mission is not damaged at all. So it's really hard to buy that. And the part of the mission that sends me back in time is, it's all dependent upon the fact that I buy that my ship is actually threatened by these Cardassians, and and I wasn't. In fact, I destroyed all of the ones that appeared on the map to stop me. So I was like, this doesn't threaten me. But it plays through the story I liked, insofar as a time jump story goes. There are some inconsistencies within the narrative that left me going, okay, I'm just gonna, that left me making myself say, okay, I just have to accept this. Time travel stories are really hard. That's one impression and observation I have, after playing through some other people's missions, is that the consistencies and the inconsistencies that are possible when you're taking your main character and hopping them around through time are just incredible. And this one, there are a few inconsistencies that totally hit me. There's some pretty decent map work in the mission, and overall, I'm going to say I enjoyed the 40-ish minutes I spent playing it. I didn't write down anything else, aside from just, these impressions of things. I also played Pursuit by P. Sutherland, who is, he won whichever Foundry challenge it was that I think it was number 6 that was about the Tholians. He did the Depths of Nukara Prime, where he did that really incredible map, that really incredible underground under Nukara map that was just superb. And my overall impression here is the same. Like, I really, really enjoy his work. He does fun map stuff. His storytelling is, someone asked me recently, what is one of the first things you look for when you're rating a mission and when you're reviewing a mission? And that, for me, is internal consistency. As we were talking about with the Purity missions, is just, for me, it's an internal continuity and story consistency with itself. And Sutherland does that really well. The only issue that I have is that the story is again about the race, the Askar that he created, which is cool. I love hating them. So that means he's created a good, person that I love to hate in his missions. So, the issue though is that it is so far, like, his storyline that he's built up over a number of missions that he's created is so far off of canon that even what is the real universe before I travel in time is so different that, story-wise, I guess what it is I have this opinion about the challenge missions, and I think it's that they should be one-offs that are, for the most part, like, I know mine is in episode 2, right? And I'm saying I feel like they should be one-offs. But I feel like the mission should feel very, very contained and consistent within itself. And in this case, I think the problem that I have is, if I didn't, with this mission, unlike Depths of Nukara Prime, if I didn't know anything about this race, the Askar, however he says it, I don't know, going into the mission, nothing in the mission helps me find out about them. Whereas in the Depths of Nukara Prime, I got to examine computer consoles that told me about, like, some of the history of their people and stuff like that. So there's a weakness in that I'm working with these people that I know nothing about, and I'm not told why I should trust them. And so, unless I had played all that other stuff, I don't know enough about these people. So that's my impression there. And I also played the mission Maiden Voyage by Clint O'Bean. I wanted more from this mission based on its title and knowing that it's about the launch of the USS Voyager. Basically, it is about the launch of the USS Voyager. It's in there. But it's a really tiny part. And it only happens at the very end of the thing. And it left me wanting more. I wanted the whole thing to be about the launch of Voyager, and there was an aspect of the mission that to me was, I went from one combat to the next combat, from kill objective to kill objective to kill objective, and sometimes the dialogues in the mission were, they just felt like they were just pointing me toward and forcing me toward the kill objectives. And I don't love kill objectives, so there was that. But the characters are really strong in this. He does a good job of establishing who everyone is that you're dealing with during the course of the mission. That was to me the mission's strong point. From a technical sense, there were a lot of details on the map that had names like Wartarg 02. Now there's an interesting thing he does with his naming convention elsewhere that it'll be like Starfleet, Bar, and then, a character name or something like that. And all the Starfleet characters have that Starfleet and then a bar at the beginning of the name. But these were where I recognize them as what the Foundry calls something, Wartarg number or Wartarg 01 or things like that throughout the mission. And it was distracting because I'm one of those people that mouses over everything that I think can be moused over as I'm running through the mission. And so I saw a lot of these base Foundry names for things that where he's created a brand new asset, this entire colony of people, they all have their individual names, but where he's used a pre-existing cryptic asset and dropped it on the map, they have those numbered names. So those are the 3 missions that I played this week. I, as yet, have 9 missions left to play before I vote. So, that's what I got.
All right. Well, let's move on to discussion topics.
Yay!
Do you want to start us off, Hippie, with your topic?
Sure. For me, my topic is, we have talked previously about how to respond to negative criticism when you get it. And what I want to talk about is an aspect of negative criticism that is not about how someone responds to it, but rather how to present negative, or not even how to present negative criticism, but the fact that the tone that you present your criticism with affects the message of what you're trying to say, and how that works. Things that, for me, for example, any mission that I choose to review and say something about give a review of, I am always looking for what that author did well so that I can talk about that, because I think that's really important to talk about so that people know what they're doing well. One of the things I learned from a sports coach in high school was that positive reinforcement is actually more powerful than negative reinforcement. And when you say something, when you're giving a review, what do you guys feel about the tone of a review and the way that people talk about other people's missions? And
it's funny that you say that. Yeah. Because in thinking about this recently, I came to the conclusion that, when you say something positive about a person, it will be like, okay, yeah, thank you. And then you say something negative and it's like it sticks with you longer. At least it does for me. I don't know, maybe I'm alone in that, but it seems like negative criticism of my work sticks with me longer, and I don't like that. It's not a good place to be.
One thing I've noticed, though, is that I guess criticism is one way to describe it. Positive criticism I found to be something that's more useful overall, because
yes,
steering someone in the right direction gives a better result than simply telling them which direction not to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving a suggestion is always good of a way to improve what you're talking about. But I think part of what Hippie's talking about is the tone in which you present your feedback.
Yeah.
And that's very important because, I mean, if you just sound like, you know, I'm going to be very blunt here. If you sound like an asshole when you're giving your feedback, it sounds different than if you're giving the exact same feedback and you put it in a nice way.
Right.
And people are going to respond differently to both different tones of voice.
Mm-hmm.
Or tones of writing, if you're...
Or tones of writing, yeah.
And I think people are going to respond better and listen more to what you have to say. If you put it in a, I would say, you know, not necessarily nice, but diplomatic way. Right. And of course, you know, this is all very subjective and people are going to react differently, different ways. But I think, you know, we're just talking generalities. I think if you're nicer about it, I think people will respond better. And you have more of a chance of getting across your thing.
Never really gets a good response from the person you're angry or ranting at, simply because of the fact that the person's going to tune half of what you say out and ignore it more often than not, just because of the fact that you don't like listening to it.
Yeah, exactly. They're just going to say, okay, you're not being very nice. I'm going to decide that I don't like you, and I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say. Even though it might be like the best advice in the world that they could have got. So I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's one other thing too that occurs that is, for some reason, when people are saying something negative, they often feel that in order to, when we're feeling negative about something, we often really want people to know or understand why, especially as a reviewer. You want them to understand why you did feel negative about it. And I guess what it is you don't have to repeat things in order to, part of the tone of a review is to try to make, like, for me anyway, is to try to, you know, make a point and move to the next point. And I know I'm guilty myself of rambling, no doubt. But sometimes I would say you don't need to repeat yourself again, you know, again and again during a review in order to make a point, kind of thing.
So it's funny you kind of brought that up because there have been a number of occasions in the recent past where, for instance, someone will come on the forums and they will say, I want to do this. And my gut reaction is, yeah, you could try and do that, but I don't think it's going to receive a good reaction. You're going to run into these problems, and so I usually will try to convey that as nicely as I can. That said, I mean, almost always there will be some kind of response from the player or from the original poster, and at some point they'll usually either kind of take my advice or they'll say, I think I'm going to do it anyway. At that point, I don't press the point. I mean, if they have heard my advice and they decide to continue on, and I will let them. I mean, it's their choice. It's their mission. And I'm certainly not the master of all Foundry. And I mean, I've been on this show long enough. You guys have been around me enough to know that I'm kind of picky sometimes.
No, really?
But I mean, but the funny thing though is that you always put it in a nice way.
Yeah, but
when you're being picky.
But I mean, that's the thing is I don't consider myself the superior in charge of the whole Foundry and what is and isn't right. I mean, and every once in a while, I mean, some will do something that, had they told me about it ahead of time, I would have said, well, that's a bad idea. But they will manage to pull it off, and it'll actually turn out great. So, I mean, I can certainly not see all ends, so...
Yeah, certainly your reviewers can be utterly and blatantly wrong.
Yeah.
Or slightly wrong.
And, I mean, there have been cases, I mean, where, I'm trying to think, like, for instance, Lisa's mission. I mean, he, made a conscious choice to go out and do these scenes where they were basically his attempt at cutscenes, where your captain was still there interacting with things, but you were told that he's not there, he's not part of this. And I felt that it was kind of a step out of, it was breaking the fourth wall a little. But that doesn't stop the fact that he still produced a compelling story, and that his story could not have been told had he adhered to my puny little stringent guidelines over here in my little corner. I mean, to put it nicely. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, every once in a while, I mean, so even as a reviewer, I kind of have to check myself and say, okay, let's just step out of this. I mean, what is he trying to achieve, and what advice can I offer him to help him try to achieve that? It's not my...
You sort of have to remove your expectations and prejudices from it.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing to do.
It is. I mean...
Really, really difficult thing to do.
I mean, I've talked to no end about it. I mean, my thoughts on the subject. But at the same time, my way is not the only way.
Absolutely.
And I often have to sit back and figure, okay, what's he trying to achieve? And how well is he doing at achieving that? It's not what I think his mission should be. It's how good is he at doing it, bringing his vision to the Foundry.
That's so true.
That is a great way to look at it.
Yeah. It's not what I think his mission should be. It's how good are they at making what seems to be their vision something that we're all seeing. Yeah.
Well, with the challenge entries, that's a bit easier, though, because of the fact that if it's just a random mission you happen to find in a database, a lot of the time it's hard to be certain what the author was shooting for.
Right.
Again,
that's
though,
true.
This is one of the reasons why I like to discuss people's, I guess you could say, goals when writing missions, because it gives me a better idea of why they did things a certain way, because I have on multiple occasions talked with people about missions where I'm like, okay, so why did you do that? It didn't make sense to me. They explain why, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, instead of what I suggested the first time, you should do this.
Funny.
Yeah, you sort of finding a way to help them achieve what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and in a couple cases that can actually get really hard because, I mean, especially with new authors coming in, sometimes they have a hard enough time that they can't convey what it is they're trying to achieve. And so as the player or reviewer, I'm kind of lost as to what they're trying to do. Which of course makes it incredibly difficult to try and give constructive feedback because you don't know what it is they were trying to do.
Indeed.
So I know. I mean, it's tough.
It's not easy being a reviewer when you want to be the kind of reviewer who puts a lot of thought into it.
Right.
I mean, if you just want to leave a couple of sentences on the thing, that's fine, you know. That's not terribly hard, but when you want to really get in depth, like a lot of us do, either on podcasts or on the forums or, you know, just directly to the author over the in-game mail, things like that, I mean, it's not necessarily an easy thing.
I've also kind of found that as a reviewer, I actually will play a mission and then wait like a day before I'll write down my notes on it, just because it gives me a chance to kind of ingest the mission a little. Obviously there's kind of a gut reaction approach, and that's one way of reviewing it, but at the same time, taking a step back and coming back to it, it kind of allows my feelings on it to settle and to kind of figure out, okay, how do I really feel about this?
Also, the quiet contemplation thing gives you a chance to ponder the aspects of the story, and maybe you'll make a connection between two elements of the story that you just didn't notice the first time.
Yeah. I mean, and how many times do you go and like watch a movie or see some new concept or something or some new design, and your immediate gut reaction is you don't like it. I mean, admit it, who here was kind of thrown off by the Odyssey when it was first shown?
Not me, but, you know.
Come on.
I always loved it.
I was gonna say, hands up if you always loved it. I kind of loved it.
And all, you know, loving something is also a gut reaction. I mean, a gut positive reaction that you sort of, when you think it over later, you're like, I hate this.
Well,
I mean, yeah, there's...
Personally though, when I first saw the board tip, I immediately thought of several other things that I'd seen elsewhere because it had a similar outline. And honestly, some of the comparisons that I came up with were favorable, some weren't, and honestly, in the long run, none of them were relevant.
But I mean, at least with me, with the Odyssey, I was like taken aback by it. I was like, 2 necks? What's up with that? That's not right. And so it wasn't over the course of sitting down and kind of mulling over it until I finally said, I kind of see it. Now, okay, there I can see it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this will work.
So you're not to this day one of those people who considers 2 necks some sort of war crime.
No.
I'm one of those people that the odder Federation ships look, the better, because simply making things that are slightly V-shaped versions of a Constitution or a Galaxy class bores the snot out of me. It's part of the reason why I like the Nebula so much, is because it has similar elements to the Galaxy class, but they're rearranged in a way that makes it look so interesting.
Oh, I love the Nebula.
Comparison.
Nebula was my favorite ship until the Akira came along.
So, I mean, that's a large part of the reason why I liked the Odyssey, is because it didn't just go where every other Star Trek ship has gone before. It actually had new elements to it that they didn't have previously.
Well, anyway, I think the general point before we got off on ships is that sometimes your initial reaction is not your final reaction.
True.
How many times have you watched a movie that you didn't like the first time, but on a subsequent watch, you're like, oh, I actually do kind of like this.
Well, many times.
More into it.
Yes, many times.
One example would be this movie called Real Genius, where the first time I watched the movie, I'm like, that's okay, I guess. And then after watching it 2 or 3 more times, I realized just how many weird details the guy who wrote the movie script put into it. And then I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I know. I actually was kind of meh about the original Stargate movie. And it wasn't until watching it a few times that kind of grew on me.
I was like that, believe it or not, with the very first Lord of the Rings movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. First time I saw it, I wasn't wild about it.
I can believe that.
The reason, and the reason was, I spent the whole movie thinking about how different it was from the book, and how different things were from what I had had in my head for so many years.
Yeah. Isn't that what everyone who read the book thought when they watched it?
Oh yeah, and it's certainly not unique to me. The second time I watched it, I loved it because I wasn't thinking about that anymore. I was just loving the movie. I was just experiencing it. So yeah, I think your point about first reactions is a very valid one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely. If you look at the forums of any length of time, you can kind of see it's full of gut reactions. People just write down the first thing that comes to them.
Yeah, like, OMG, you suck. Well, okay, they usually don't say that exactly, but,
Sure they do.
Well, yeah, some of them do.
I was like, which forums have you been reading?
Like the 70 or so page thread on why boss dinosaurs are a bad thing.
Yeah, they just go with whatever the first reaction is. We don't even know how to work with the story.
So my first reaction, there you go, my first reaction to the idea that we were getting dinosaurs was like, oh, this is terrible. That lasted for about 10 minutes, and then I went, wait a minute. If we're getting dinosaurs, there's a chance we're going to get dinosaurs in the Foundry. And I got super excited. And now
so
I think
Cryptic does dinosaurs, it's horrible, but if you get dinosaurs...
No, and it wasn't even horrible because what it made me do was suddenly realize the storytelling possibilities that I wasn't even thinking of, that I'm sure they're going to be using too. Dinosaurs are just cool, I guess is what it comes down to. And my first reaction was to be denying the cool of the dinosaurs. I don't know how to say it other than that.
Because the dinosaurs are in themselves a bit of a trope, I think that's what people are gut reacting to.
Yeah.
More or less whether or not dinosaurs could actually be in Star Trek. Because let's face it, the Voth are freaking dinosaur people. I mean, there's no denying that aspect.
That's very true.
Yep.
And it's not an inconceivable leap to say
some people
they
thought that
brought
was a bit
more
ridiculous
species
in the
than
first
just
place.
themselves with them when they fled Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they thought existence was going to be wiped out, they probably would have found an ark.
Left Earth or how much stuff they took with them. I mean,
Yeah,
one thing that people are like about the Voth is like, okay, why didn't people find ancient ruins they left behind or blah 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 blah? Well, let's think of it this way: what if the Voth literally packed up everything that was left of their entire civilization and took it with them?
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly reasonable. And what we know about Voth technology, I mean, quickly kind of spirals in, and in the end, you end up with dinosaurs with laser beams. Yeah. Yes, it's a trope, but it's not completely inconceivable either.
It's a trope, and a lot of people are making fun of it for being a trope and for being silly. And
the thing that they put on the TV Tropes website is that tropes are not bad.
No, they're not bad. For all
they're
the
just
people
they're
that are
just
like,
storytelling devices.
For all the people that are like, it's too silly, all right, let's get back to some serious Trek then, like when Paris and Janeway had lizard babies.
Oh man!
I'm sorry. What episode are you talking about? That doesn't make else.
We don't acknowledge that episode.
Also, I'm not sure how Enterprise ended either.
Anyway, we've wandered away from what we were talking about. So why don't we move on? Why don't we move on to another?
I
think we've covered this one pretty well.
Next.
You need one of those big giant hooks.
The topic I wanted to talk about tonight was revisiting a little bit from last time as we were talking about PvP maps and about the idea that someday it would be great if Cryptic allowed us to make PvP maps, because there's very few of them in the game. There's not a lot of variety, and we'd love to be able to have that flexibility to build PvP maps. So I went over to the PvP section of the forum right during as we were recording last week's show last Wednesday, and I asked some questions, very simple questions. Said, would you like to play custom PvP maps, and would you try making them? Would you like to see multiple game modes on custom maps or just deathmatch? What makes a PvP map good? What things do you like to see in a PvP map? What is your favorite PvP map from Stowe and why? And then what are your favorite PvP maps from other games and why? Now, first off, nobody really said anything interesting on that last question. For myself, I was thinking of things from like Quake and Unreal Tournament and Dark Forces 2, all those great multiplayer maps that I played when I was, like a teenager. And, lots of people love certain maps from like Call of Duty and things like that, and I was thinking of things that I would recreate if I was able to make PvP maps for Stowe. All of which would be ground maps, incidentally. But I did get some interesting, about 5 people responded, and I got some really interesting feedback on this. Almost all the people who responded said that they would love to play custom maps. And that they would like to create some. Dark Frontiers said he might even make some with some actual backstories to them, which I always thought was good. Introducing a little story into your PvP is always good, because we love story. Things that, Dark Frontiers is a good example. He had some good responses. He said, under what makes a PvP map good, things like good cover, obstacles to hide behind, things to break the line of sight, so you can sneak up on people or you can get away from people. Under things he said he would like to see PvP map set in the Badlands. I think that would be pretty cool. He likes the capture and hold type of gameplay. He thinks that it makes the battles a bit more spread out, which I would probably agree. Arena, of course, is good for a solid team experience, he says. Eisenwolf mentioned, and this is not something that I thought of, and this is, I think, one of the really good responses I got from Eisenwolf. He says, what makes a PvP map good? He said a map which hopefully doesn't ruin the frame rates for players. And that's kind of that's why I went and asked these guys. Because I wanted to.
Makes a lot of sense.
I wanted to get that feedback as things that I don't think about because I'm not a PvPer. Obviously, if you're a PvPer, you want the game to be running as smoothly as humanly possible. And also because then, that makes it fair for people who maybe don't have the best computer in the world.
Right.
He said that he would like to see a blank space map, just stars and darkness. Thought that would be interesting. Said a nebula map which screws up everyone's sensors, basically the Mutara Nebula as a PvP map. So no shields, no sensors.
Okay.
That would be interesting. He said he'd like to see a giant asteroid belt, and it would be really cool if the asteroids could explode into tiny pieces if you happen to crash into one. Which obviously, that's not a functionality we have at the moment, but that would be really cool.
That would be really cool.
That'd be really cool, not even just for PvP.
The existing Badlands maps they added as part of one of the Bavat missions did, in fact, have some environmental hazards in it, but those were things that would explode if you shot them. They didn't actively do anything.
Yeah, they've had a few of those around, which I suppose you could say we could do. You'd have to do it by triggers, and you couldn't actually attack it, because we can't attack inanimate objects. We could fake it a little bit, though.
I was going to say, we could fake that.
we could fake, we're always good at faking things. So let's see, I had a response from Hurlybird. He said that, in an arena map, he'd say mechanisms to stop teams from spiraling up too far. This is something, in the few times that I've PvP'd, this is something that seems to happen a lot, is when you get into an engagement, you seem to keep going up, and eventually you hit like the roof of the map. So he'd like to see some things that would stop that. And he said he likes good scenery, but also a good frame rate.
One idea for that would be an environmental hazard. Like, if you fly too high, you bump into the explosive asteroid or a nebula that's electrically charged or something.
And that was what another one of the guys said. He said, what are things you like to see in PvP maps? He said hazards. Something like, a bottomless pit or, fire that damages the player, things like that. Which is something that we'd love to see for our non-PvP maps.
Well, one thing I've encountered in some games is stuff like, the standard explosive barrel thing that a lot of games have because, well, it's actually a pretty cool feature in most of the games that have used it because, the basic idea here is be careful what you shoot at and be careful what you stand next to because if your enemy shoots at it, what might happen. Which, in STO terms, they actually have done things like this. One of the Cardassian or Dominion featured episodes actually does have explosive barrels in it. And it also has that trick where you interact with the consoles to do various things to the Dominion ground troops, which are actually extremely useful simply because of the fact that you're outnumbered, but whatever.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that I would love to be able to do if I was to make a PvP map is have the ability to have some water, some placeable water. There's a great map from Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight that I used to play on a lot. I can't for the life of me remember the name of it, but it was this neat thing. It had a pool in the middle, which had at the bottom of it one of the better weapons that you could go and retrieve. It had some catwalks, it had ramps, it had secret areas. It was just a really fun map. And I think probably if we got this ability, I think probably a lot of what I would do is remake all my favorite old multiplayer maps. But for things like that, it would take some things that we don't have access to now.
Right.
I think Neverwinter might have placeable water.
Yeah, that's unhelpful.
Something else to ask for.
Unhelpful at the moment, but hopefully maybe Gecko will hear these things and get it to us.
Well, placeable water asset has been on the list of requested assets in the forum for quite a while.
No doubt. There's many things on that list.
I was going to say, that's a really long list.
But, I want to thank the PvP community for their great responses. And I was going to ask you guys if you had anything you wanted to add on the subject of PvP.
I just see it as, so one thing that I don't have the best handle on is how to make combat challenging when I'm designing a mission, say. And one of the things I'm encountering as I'm playing through other people's missions is that the combats aren't particularly challenging, and that's not entirely because we don't have access to really big mobs, or it's somewhat because I could learn a lot about tactics and how to set up enemies from the guys who PvP all the time. They want to know about building maps. We certainly know about that. See, I see this whole idea as a really, really awesome community building kind of idea. It's kind of what I talked about months ago, this is a great idea. I think this is super, basically.
Well, the way I see it is we would, to do this, you would need to do a few things. First off, have, at the very first, when you're creating your mission, you say you have a little checkbox that says, story mission or PvP mission. And when you check PvP mission, then you create a mission. It does some different things. First of all, unless they wanted to change this, maybe you would only be able to do one map.
Okay.
And it would give you some different options instead of one spawn point. It would give you, you could either decide this is going to be a team map, so team spawns it would give you two of them. So, red team, blue team. Okay, those go here. Mm-hmm. You can put those anywhere you want. You could, have some multiple spawn points. I know there's some maps that have multiple spawn points even for each team. So we need to have some functionality for that. It would get really complicated if you had some of the other game modes like capture and hold. So you would need, like reach markers for each capture point. And you would probably have to place a limit on capture points, probably like 5, something like that.
It sounds like a very complicated feature.
I don't actually know if you need all that much more than that. I mean, if you wanted to do something like Shantytown, it could get really complicated.
Well, see, one thing I've been pondering is I keep thinking back to the Aliens versus Predators games that I played over 10 years ago.
Ooh, that had some great maps.
When I think about doing PvP maps, because, that's part of the reason why I made my maps so three-dimensionally complex, because that's the cool thing about the way they did their maps, is that there were all sorts of different paths you could go. It wasn't a simple matter of red base goes down the whole way to get to the blue base and shoots at the blue guys along the way. It didn't do that. Another one would be one of the old James Bond console games. I don't remember exactly which console it's for. Maybe the N64. I don't know.
GoldenEye, though, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one. Where, again, most of the maps had multiple ways you could get from point A to point B. Granted, the GoldenEye ones, they gave you every single map in the game to use for PvP, and several of these maps, let's just say that they weren't designed with PvP in mind. As an example, one of them had this thing where the entranceway was, there was this snowy plain outside, this really big door you can walk through, And if somebody happened to booby trap the door and you spawned outside, you were kind of SOL. But, again, the ones that they had that were actually designed for PvP tended to be things that were kind of like the assimilated starship interior, where you have 3 main rooms and a bunch of hallways that connect them to each other. In the Aliens vs. Predators games, they broke that up, making the rooms themselves three-dimensionally complex, and they did that to a certain extent in that James Bond game too, where you have balconies, you have these. You go out in the hallway, you have a brick in the hallway. One might go up to a balcony, the other one might go to a different room, and stuff like that. And of course, you have walls and all sorts of other things to hide behind. Which, that was what made stuff like that fun for me, is because you have all these different options, and what you're doing is you're trying to outthink your opponent. You're trying to figure out, okay, my opponent, as far as I know, is somewhere in that general direction. What is the quickest way for them to get from there to here? Which way are they most likely to use? And where is the best place for me to ambush them? I mean, it gives you a lot of decisions to make while deciding what to do, even though what you're doing is just the same old thing that you would otherwise do in PvE missions, where you just walk up to the enemy, shoot them in the face, and then go find more enemies.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think back to the great multiplayer maps that I like. There was always, even if it was that sort of simple red base, blue base, go at each other, there was always multiple ways to get around the map, and ways to get behind people, great sniper perches, all that sort of stuff. And I think we can make that variety in the Foundry. I mean, we have the tools to make great maps, and I think we need some more places where we can make maps for some more game types. I mean, add to that the other things I'd like to see. I'd like to see us be able to make social maps. I'd like to see us be able to make STFs. But, we need Cryptic to obviously, do the things, get the programming to allow us to do this. That's the crutch, obviously.
Right.
And, it's just, just fun discussion until that happens. So, why don't we move along? Our next topic is, one that's sort of going to be different for everybody. But, the question is, what makes a mission a 5-star? You're playing through a mission. What to you makes it worthy of 5 stars and not 4? So, Hippie, let's start with you.
Wow. Yeah, you asked us this before the show, and I said that I'd sit and I would try to figure out what it is for me that makes that difference. And I guess I need to preface whatever my answer is with the fact that I don't believe in the 5-star rating system at all, especially in this weird weighted 5-star rating system that displays your different weight dependent. But it's not working for me. Overall, the way that it's shaken out, it's not working in my mind. The reason I don't like a 5-star rating system is any kind of rating system that you set on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to whatever, they all tend to gravitate toward the kind of 60th to 80th percentile. So you gravitate toward 4 stars no matter what happens is what it comes down to. And it means that there's something inherently broken with that way of rating missions. I don't know how to fix it. It's a statistical thing that I have no idea how to fix. I'm not real good at math, necessarily. And it comes down to what makes me tag a mission 5 stars is when it's perfect in my eyes or in my playthrough of it. Now, that could mean that in a dialogue tree, an author could have multiple misspellings down a path that I never went, and I didn't see them. So that's that can happen. But when I say perfect, what I mean by that is, I mean that the story catches my attention and never lets it go. The characters that are supposed to be interesting, or at least feel like they're supposed to be interesting, are interesting. The mechanics of the gameplay never annoy me, and the story, for you guys know me, it comes down to that the story is always more important than the gameplay, but it's 5 stars is this kind of nice mix of all of them. And sometimes just a cool trick that an author does that I had never seen before will get me to give a mission 5 stars. That's happened in the past as well. So that's the difference for me. 4 stars, you can get 4 stars from me with a lot of things wrong if the story is really strong. So that's all I'll say. That's what makes it 5 stars to me.
Excellent.
Well, I'm actually,
yeah.
I think of myself
as
being rather lenient when it comes to 5-star missions, simply because of the fact that, well, the way I see it, what I'm looking for is reasons to say that the mission sucks. I mean, that's the simplest way I can think of to explain it. And when I don't see those, then I give it a 5-star. I mean, like, if the person has, some particularly egregious spelling errors, okay, that's a problem. But, 1 or 2 minor typos here and there, whatever. I mean, I could think of some missions that were submitted for challenge entries that I dropped and didn't even bother finish playing, despite the fact that I decided that I wanted to play through all of the missions before making my decision, because they put in some sort of boss battle that was just ridiculous, where, I forget exactly what the name of the mission was, but there's this space battle where you're getting spawn camped by 4 enemy groups, and every time you respawn, they start shooting at you before you finish respawning. And there's 4 enemy groups or something stupid like that. I have no idea what the guy was thinking. I pointed it out to him, and he apparently didn't care, so whatever. See, that for me is a very good reason not to give something 5 stars. In fact, I gave that one considerably less than 5 stars, because aside from having an impossible-to-win battle, there wasn't any other reason to like the mission. I mean, I suppose, if I tend to be rather unforgiving if it's a mission that's generally boring and unappetizing to play, where I'm like, okay, when is this going to be over with? I'm tired of this now. If I get to that point before I'm done with the mission, then I'll be rather harsh when deciding whether or not to give it 5 stars, but, most of the time, not so much.
Greendragoon, what do you think? What makes a mission 5-star worthy?
I tend to give 5 stars to missions which separate themselves from the mass. 4 stars is kind of my widest berth, which, I'm sure contributes to Hippiejohn's hump.
4 stars is what I give most missions.
Yeah. But a 4-star mission is a mission that isn't doing anything wrong, but doesn't separate itself from the
herd.
The herd. It's 4-star missions are usually missions that are basically kind of doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
5-star missions are missions where I see mastery of the Foundry craft in one way or another, whether it be just a real understanding of map building, a real understanding of gameplay, a mastery of story flow, or a incredibly unique and developed story process. So I especially look for missions that are doing these really well on multiple levels.
Okay.
So if there was a 6-star, it would be missions that are like doing maps and gameplay and story all well.
Well, and mine's even
I
slight.
have one.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Mark. No,
I
go
have
ahead.
on several occasions run into a mission where I really, really wish I could give it 6 or 7 stars just because it was that amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we've all done that. So I mean, there's 3 different ways, and I even do a slightly different one. I mean, I'm like you guys. 4 stars is sort of my default if I liked the mission. But for me, when it pushes up into 5-star, it's when sort of everything comes together. All the different little elements that make up a good Foundry mission are all done very well and all integrated together in such a way that I'm not ever taken out of the story and not ever, when I get to the end of the mission, I'm not thinking those are great maps, or I'm not thinking that was a great story, or I'm not thinking that was really well done dialogue. I'm thinking that was great overall. It's not none of them stick out to me as better than the others. It's when all of it is integrated so well that I'm just thinking, what a great mission. That's when I give it a 5-star.
It's almost the criteria is to make a Foundry mission that doesn't feel like a Foundry mission.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. 4 different ways to look at it. That's a quick one, and I certainly invite anybody from the audience to tell us what makes a 5-star mission for you. Let's see. Greendragoon had a topic for us. It was he wanted to talk about opening text in a mission.
Yes.
Explain that a little bit.
So when you're browsing through the list, every mission has a paragraph or 2 basically describing the mission for people. And for me, I've always kind of considered that the Foundry equivalent of the elevator sales pitch. You only have a limited amount of space, and even less if you consider that you really kind of have to in a crowded Foundry list, you kind of have to grab the player's attention quickly. But the question is, how do you make that opening or that description good enough to convince players to play your mission? How do you sell your Foundry mission?
I say I usually, and I don't know if this is necessarily a good way or the best way or anything like that, but I'll just tell you what I do, is I tend to keep it pretty short and sweet, and just try and tease the mission a little bit, give them a little bit of setup and a slight idea of where it's going. I mean, obviously I'm going to keep any plot twist secret, things like that. I'm going to try and get them excited about what it's going to be. And it's not necessarily easy, and it's usually about the last thing I do is that summary at the very beginning.
Yeah, any mission I'm working on up until it gets ready for publish has this paragraph about not playing this mission. It's not done yet. It's always like this default paragraph.
It's always named test, please don't rate.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what do you guys think? How do you approach your summary?
So
I was going to say, I agree. I try to keep it short and sweet. It sell them on the idea if you can, basically. If you can't, I'm a big believer of something in college that I learned was, most films sell themselves within the first 5 minutes of the movie as to whether you're going to really enjoy it or not. Some films are an exception to this, but most within the first 5 minutes attempt to get your attention. And I try to think that the shorter that you can make your point, the better in those journal descriptions. So
I kind of feel that you have a couple of points that you need to tackle. First off, you need to give the player enough of an idea of they can expect to know whether or not it's for them. I mean, you can run the gambit and make it too vague, and uncover a plot that threatens the very Federation. Okay, that actually gives me nothing. I don't know nothing about this mission. But by the same token, you don't want to give away too much that they have a complete idea of or how the mission is going to play out. Another thing that you kind of need to do is, you need to differentiate your mission from everyone else's mission. So, I mean, how many missions out there are responding to a distress call, or plots to the Federation, or threaten the Federation, or a new enemy? I mean, there are a million and one missions that are selling that, so you kind of gotta sell your mission, explain to the player, how is your mission different than the 40 other missions nearby that also are doing the same thing? I mean, if you keep it, so yeah, it's almost a way of kind of making sure that you throw in enough twist to kind of intrigue them and kind of differentiate your own thing, but at the same time, not giving too much away.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely don't want to spoil the mission, because then people won't want to play it. Obviously.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to give your whole plot away, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
So can you guys think of any, like, good examples of, descriptions that sold a mission well, or descriptions that, didn't really, do it for you?
I think I've seen some that are just far too long and involved, and I think to myself, probably no one's ever going to read that whole thing. I don't tend to like to put sort of, author's notes in them unless there's a really compelling reason to do so.
Yeah, I have on some occasions seen people who would do like a part 2 of 3 where they attempted to write a complete recap of everything that happened in part 1 in the mission summary.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's not where I would put it. I mean, one thing we've been doing in Purity is sort of, the previously on Star Trek kind of thing at the opening, and I would put that in sort of the opening dialogue.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that was an example I was using of what not to do, really, because that's one of the things where I look at it and I'm like,
I think you'd want to, if you're in a series, you want to summarize the mission that you're on. That's what your opening, that's what your summary text ought to deal with. And you can summarize the previous mission when you get into the dialogue.
It's kind of like what you would see if you were looking on the back of the jacket for a DVD, where it's a summary of what happens in the movie. I mean, it's that style of writing.
That's a good way to put it. It's a good example.
I know sometimes in mine I will keep extra notes related to, for instance, if I'll put a note in right before the season goes live saying that season updates are prone to break Foundry missions.
That's an interesting approach.
When I do that, though...
Yeah, I saw you post that today in a thread on the forums.
Yeah, but when I do that, I usually put it in out-of-character text to separate it from the mission description.
Here's a good thing. Something that you should include, and something I'm guilty of not always including, is the door location.
Yes.
The location to start the mission. Put that in some... Because it's easy to find that again if you get into it and you don't remember where the mission's supposed to start.
In fact, I think I
just do a quick search and that's where it is.
I'm a firm believer there are actually 3 places that you should put that mission door. In the mission description, at the end of the opening dialogue, whenever you're about ready to head to wherever, and in the mission info on the first map, or in the map info.
Okay.
Because
I definitely agree. And then I also take it a small step further is, the button to enter the mission.
Yep.
I always say begin mission title.
Yeah.
So that you know you're in the right place. Well, I don't know if there's too much more to say on that topic.
Okay, so it didn't be a very long one.
This is a nice quick topic. One thing we'd like to end with for the night, though, is a request to all our listeners. If we're looking for more tech topics, technical questions about building the Foundry, how-tos, things like that. We want your topics. Please submit it to us either by Twitter or by email. Those are both listed in the show notes, or comments on Starbase UGC post or post on the forums. We're looking for ideas, things you would like to hear us talk about, how we do things, how we build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of come up with topics on our own, but it doesn't really tell us what you guys think we need to cover.
Or that they want. Yeah, like, what do people want to hear about tech topic-wise?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But we will say goodnight for this episode.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.